Have you ever found yourself scanning the street before your dog even notices another dog? Not because you're enjoying the walk, but because you're already preparing for what might happen next. You spot another dog in the distance. Your grip on the leash tightens. Your heart beats a little faster. And then it happens. Your dog lunges, barks, growls, pulls with all their strength as if they're desperate to get to the other dog. People stare. Some quietly cross the street. Others assume your dog is aggressive. After enough walks like this, it's easy to start believing the same thing yourself. Maybe you've started choosing quieter routes. Maybe you only walk early in the morning or late at night just to avoid other dogs. If that sounds familiar, you're far from alone. Reactivity toward other dogs is one of the most common reasons owners seek professional help. But here's something that surprises many people: the barking, the lunging, the growling may not actually be the problem. In many cases, they're simply the final result of something that's been building long before the other dog ever came into view. And that changes everything. Because if we focus only on stopping the barking, we may completely miss what's causing it. Today, we're going to look at what your dog may actually be experiencing during those difficult moments, why so many well meaning owners accidentally make the situation harder, and what truly helps reactive dogs become calmer over time. Because sometimes the dog who looks the toughest is actually the one who's struggling the most. When a dog explodes at the sight of another dog, it's easy to reach one conclusion: my dog is aggressive. It feels obvious. After all, they're barking, growling, lunging. Sometimes it even looks like they want to attack. But behavior isn't always the same as intention. And this is one of the biggest misunderstandings owners make, because two dogs can look almost identical while experiencing completely different emotions. One dog may be trying to drive the other away because they're frightened. Another may be so overwhelmed that they no longer know how to stay calm. A third may desperately want to greet the other dog, but frustration from being held back on the leash turns excitement into barking and lunging. From the outside, all three dogs can look aggressive, but inside, their emotional experience is completely different. Imagine seeing someone shout in public. Without knowing the situation, you might assume they're simply an angry person. But what if they're terrified, or panicking, or desperately trying to protect someone they love? The behavior looks the same. The reason behind it does not. Dogs are no different. And one of the biggest myths in dog ownership is that every friendly dog should enjoy meeting every other dog. But that's simply not how social animals work. Some dogs have many friends, some have only one or two, some are perfectly content walking past other dogs without saying hello, and none of those dogs are doing anything wrong. Many owners judge a successful walk by the number of greetings their dog had, but your dog's emotional well being isn't measured that way. The real question isn't, did my dog say hello? It's, how did my dog feel during the walk? Because once we stop expecting every dog to love every other dog, we begin seeing their behavior in a completely different light. And that changes the next question we ask. Instead of wondering, why is my dog so aggressive? We begin asking, what is my dog trying to cope with? That question opens the door to understanding. And understanding leads us to something many owners never realize. Most reactive outbursts don't begin when another dog appears. They begin long before that moment. Imagine your dog's stress level like water slowly filling a bucket. The walk begins. A loud truck passes by. A cyclist rides too close. A stranger reaches out to pet them. A dog barks from behind a fence. New smells keep their brain busy. A child suddenly runs past. None of these moments causes an explosion on its own, but each one may add a little more emotional pressure. Your dog keeps coping, keeps processing, keeps trying to make sense of everything happening around them. Then another dog appears, and suddenly the bucket overflows. From our perspective, it looks as though the other dog caused the reaction, but in many cases, they were simply the final drop. Here's something else many owners don't realize. The first dog isn't always the problem. Your dog may calmly walk past one dog, then another, and react only to the third or fourth. Not because that last dog was somehow different, but because emotional pressure kept building with every encounter. Think about your own day. After a good night's sleep and a quiet morning, a small inconvenience barely gets your attention. But after hours of stress, noise, frustration, and exhaustion, even something minor can feel overwhelming. Dogs experience emotional overload in much the same way. That's why reactive behavior is often less about the dog standing in front of them and more about the emotional state they were already carrying into that moment. And once you begin looking at your walks this way, an important question replaces an unhelpful one. Instead of asking, why did my dog react to that dog? You begin asking, what happened during the last 15 minutes? Because when you understand what fills your dog's bucket, you can begin helping before it ever overflows. If you've ever walked a reactive dog, you've probably experienced this next moment without even realizing it. Your dog notices another dog. Their body becomes still. Their breathing changes. Their muscles tighten. They're already trying to figure out what might happen next. At exactly the same moment, most owners do something almost automatically. They shorten the leash. They stop walking. They hold their breath. Their shoulders become tense. Everything happens in just a second or two, and your dog notices every bit of it. While they're watching the other dog, they're also watching you. Your body often tells a story before you ever say a word. If your dog feels the leash suddenly become tight, if your breathing changes, if your movements become stiff, they may begin to wonder whether there's something to worry about. This doesn't mean your emotions cause reactivity, but they can become part of the picture your dog is trying to understand. Now imagine how your dog experiences the same moment. They've already noticed another dog. They're unsure how close that dog will come. They can't choose their own distance because they're attached to a leash. Then, almost instantly, the leash becomes even shorter. To many dogs, that doesn't feel like support. It feels like having fewer options, and the fewer options an anxious animal has, the harder it becomes to stay calm. Everything we do comes from a good place. We're trying to help. We're trying to prevent another difficult scene. But many of our natural instincts focus on changing the behavior instead of changing how the dog experiences the situation. Imagine you're afraid of heights. Someone smiles and says, "Don't worry," then gently leads you closer to the edge. They aren't trying to upset you. They're trying to prove there's nothing to fear. But your body probably wouldn't become calmer. It would become more alert. Reactive dogs can experience something very similar. Simply forcing them closer to what already feels overwhelming rarely creates confidence. More often, it teaches them that uncomfortable situations become even more uncomfortable. Perhaps the biggest misunderstanding of all is believing that every dog should greet every other dog. Sometimes the healthiest interaction between two dogs, depends, is simply walking past each other without either one feeling the need to react. And once you understand that, your goal quietly begins to change. Instead of asking, how do I make my dog say hello? You begin asking, how can I help my dog stay comfortable enough that saying hello isn't necessary? That single shift changes countless decisions you'll make during every walk. For a long time, many people believed that barking and lunging were the problem. But researchers studying canine communication have found that dogs often use much quieter signals long before they reach that point. They may slow down, turn their head away, freeze for a moment, create a little more distance, or become unusually focused on the environment around them. These subtle behaviors can be part of a dog's attempt to reduce tension before barking or growling ever begins. The difficult part is that most people never notice them. By the time the barking starts, those quieter messages have often already come and gone. Imagine trying to have a conversation with someone who whispers several warnings, but nobody listens until they finally have to shout. That's what happens to many reactive dogs. The barking isn't always the first message, it's often the last one. And once you begin noticing those earlier moments, something else becomes clear. Every reaction is practice. Every time your dog follows the same emotional path, notice, become overwhelmed, explode, recover, that path becomes a little more familiar. Not because your dog is stubborn, not because they're trying to be difficult, simply because repeated behaviors become easier to repeat. That's why preventing the explosion is often far more valuable than trying to interrupt it after it has already begun. The moment your dog starts barking, you're usually already too late for learning. Their brain isn't focused on new information anymore. It's focused on getting through what feels like a very difficult situation. So instead of waiting for the bark, watch for the silence that comes before it. The moment your dog's body becomes still, their mouth closes, their eyes lock onto another dog, that's often your best opportunity to help. Create a little more distance, change direction if you need to. Help first, teach later. One of the hardest parts of living with a reactive dog is that progress rarely looks the way people expect. Many owners hope for one big moment. One day their dog sees another dog and simply doesn't react. But that's usually not how change happens. Real progress is often so small that it's easy to miss. Maybe last week your dog exploded the moment another dog appeared 100 feet away. Today, they notice the other dog first. Their body becomes tense, but they don't bark immediately. That may only be a few extra seconds. To you, it might not seem like much. To your dog, it's a completely different emotional experience. Or perhaps your dog still barks, but this time they recover much faster. Instead of staying upset for several minutes, they relax after only a short pause. That's progress. Maybe they glance back at you before reacting. That's progress too. It means your dog is beginning to think, maybe instead of simply reacting. But there's something even more important that many owners never think to measure. Recovery matters just as much as the reaction itself. Two dogs may bark for exactly the same amount of time. One settles again within 10 seconds. The other stays tense for another 10 minutes. Those are very different emotional experiences. So don't ask only, did my dog react? Also ask, how quickly were they able to recover? Because recovery tells you something incredibly important. It tells you how quickly your dog's nervous system was able to return to balance. Many owners accidentally overlook these small improvements because they're waiting for perfection, but behavior rarely changes all at once. Confidence is built one successful experience at a time, one calm decision, one better recovery, one walk that goes just a little more smoothly than the last, and over weeks, those small victories begin adding up. Eventually, the dog who once felt overwhelmed by every encounter starts moving through the world with a little more confidence. Not because they were forced to stop reacting, but because they gradually discovered they didn't have to. And once you begin recognizing these quieter signs of progress, something else changes too. Your focus shifts away from asking, why is my dog still barking, to asking, what helped my dog recover more quickly today? That single change in perspective often transforms not only your dog's learning, but your own confidence as well. There's one final idea that can completely change the way you see every walk. The goal isn't to help your dog meet more dogs. It isn't to prove they can walk up to every dog they see. And it certainly isn't to force socialization. The real goal is much simpler: to help your dog move through the world without becoming overwhelmed. Once you look at your walks this way, many decisions suddenly become much easier. Crossing the street isn't avoiding the problem, it's making a thoughtful choice. Taking a wider path isn't giving up. It's giving your dog enough space to keep thinking, because distance isn't avoidance. Distance is information. It gives your dog the opportunity to notice another dog, understand what's happening, and remain calm enough to process the situation instead of simply reacting. The worst moment to teach your dog is the moment they're least able to learn. Once they've crossed their emotional threshold, learning almost always takes a back seat to survival. Help first, teach later. That simple principle can completely change the way you approach difficult walks. If your dog notices another dog, stays below their emotional limit, and continues walking calmly, that is success. If your dog notices 3 different dogs, never has to bark, and comes home more relaxed than yesterday, that wasn't a wasted walk. It was one of the most valuable walks you could have given them, because success isn't measured by greetings. It isn't measured by how many dogs your dog met. It's measured by how often they can experience the world without feeling the need to defend themselves against it. If there's one idea I'd like you to remember from this video, it's this: a reactive dog isn't trying to make your life difficult. In many cases, they're having a difficult time themselves. When we only see the barking, it's easy to believe the goal is to stop the noise. But when we begin to see the emotion behind that behavior, the goal changes. Instead of asking, how do I stop my dog from reacting? We begin asking, what does my dog need so they no longer feel the need to react? That single question can change every walk you'll ever take together. There will still be difficult days. There will still be setbacks. Progress is rarely a straight line. Some walks will feel harder than the one before. That doesn't mean your dog isn't learning. It simply means learning isn't always linear. Your dog doesn't need to win every encounter. They don't need to greet every dog. They don't even need to like every dog they meet. They simply need to believe they can move through the world without becoming overwhelmed. Your job isn't to prove your dog can meet every dog on the street. Your job is to become the person who notices when they're struggling, who gives them space before they lose control, and who helps them rebuild confidence one successful walk at a time. Because the most confident dogs aren't the ones who greet every dog they see. They're the ones who can calmly walk past, knowing they don't need to react at all. And perhaps that's the most important difference of all. A truly confident dog isn't one who has simply stopped barking. It's one who no longer feels that barking is their only option.